Beef. So Madhuvija or Japesh, can you please play the guitar because Madhuvija doesn't have her guitar. Just for my 1 minute, please. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, namaskar. So what, Madhuvija, do I facilitate or what?
I don't know, but we
You
need to start with miscellaneous.
Good.
But I'm not sure if we'll have time for the rest. Maybe we'll skip it and then the next time we'll continue.
Yeah, we'll leave the miscellaneous in the miscellaneous section. Okay. So let's start with an overview for the 15 Shilas. So I've promised to do that. So this is the presentation that Dada Shila Bhadrananda gave for me during my LSE training. So I'll just use a few slides for this. So as far as we know, I think that Shila has a few meanings in from Sanskrit. So shield, conduct or stone, shows a direction. So that's semantics meaning or etymological meaning, which is interesting. And Dada Shila Bhadrananda. Shila, Bhadra, Ananda, and Dada Daya, Shila, Ananda. So two Dadas in Canada are exemplify with their name the importance of these principles here, of this section of principles. So we have Yama Niyamas, are the 10 universal moral principles, and the 15 Shilas are the complement to Yama Niyama, or elucidation. So if you and I, and we all go here and we type, so the first time, can anyone tell me where do we find 15 Shilas? In what text? In what book?
In Charya.
Yes. So here I'm in part 2. So Baba is already mentioning Pancha Dasha Shila, 15 Shilas. So here it is. So 1975, that was given. So I think that was given right before Sri Anandamurti was unjustly imprisoned. One of you can do the Googling up and see the time when he was imprisoned, but I think that was right before the emergency in India. And I've heard somewhere or read somewhere that he specifically, well, explicitly gave it so the Margis, the spiritual aspirants, can be more structural, procedural, and devoted to the moral principles. So he gave even this elaboration on the 10th yamas and niyamas. So yamas and niyamas, they kind of interact with these ones, how do you say, not interchangeably. What's the word, Japesh, when I influence you and you influence me? It's mutual interrelationship.
Like a reciprocal kind of relationship. I don't know the exact word.
Yeah. It's reciprocal relationship, reciprocal influence. They both influence each other. So they all influence each other. So 16 points, 15 shilas, and 10 yamas and niyamas. So what happens when we follow the 15 shilas well? Madhavidi, can you read this one, please?
We develop tremendous personal balance. We become morally firm. We develop immense willpower. At the same time, we develop a loving heart.
So can you guess who wrote this? Anybody who wrote this?
Sri Anandamurti?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Dada Tadananda.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. We're having like a little bit critical thinking class today. Who is this lecture by? Who compiled this lecture?
Dada Shila Padrananda.
Dada Shila Bhadrananda Ji, a senior Acharya and one of the Purodas of Ananda Marga. He's a very respected Dada. And I am biased, but I'm just, it's just I mean, we should be critical in understanding what comes from what. And this is Dada Shila Bhadrananda's personal experiences. And even being a Margi for 6 years for myself, I can say that these principles are very important and for the quality of meditation. And this word that I could ask Japesh, but I couldn't figure out, good sadhana is dependent on good moral principles, and moral principles are dependent on good sadhana, means, meditation, and the intensity of meditation. So all of these things are very important. We cannot just throw them out of the way. So it's an important elaboration, and everything that Baba does, nothing is accidental. Nothing is accidental, everything is incidental, Baba says, in this universe. So Japesh or Atmaram, what is the difference between accidental and incidental? Do you know? What's the difference between accident and an incident?
It really depends on if you participate in it. So it's so if anyone participate in it, so it's accident, right? So it's nobody involved in it, so it's incident.
That's an interesting interpretation. I've never heard this before. Yep.
It's just my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's your understanding. Yeah, sure. Yep.
Accidental is more of a random occurrence, and incidental might have some sort of a intent behind it.
You got it. Cause. So thank you to both of your answers. This is Baba's explanation. He said everything is incidental, means everything has a cause and an effect. So what we experience right now, some samskaras, or what we have right now, it's the effect or the result of the cause that we may not know, because it may not be from this life, from this birth. I don't know. This is the tantric philosophy, so there is this mystical aspect to it, but to me personally, subjectively, it makes sense. It's possible. Not like even like if the theory of evolution and many theory, like nothing comes from nowhere. Of course, some people like absurdists or existentialists say that, but in tantra, everything is a cause and effect for everything. But maybe subconscious or unconscious, which is inaccessible in the normal state of the mind. So anyways, without further ado, I will now hand it over to Madhuvidya, who is the facilitator. So the first two principles are
The
actually presented
first, yeah, Atmaram,
Atmaram.
I think.
Atmaram, I'm pretty sure. I'm looking at it. So Atmaram, please, the stage is yours. Go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, when I was preparing these two principles, I planned to spend an hour, and I did spend an hour because I had only an hour. But while doing that, I realized that that would require like 8 hours I would say, sufficiently cover the topics. So I guess I apologize um, for how brief the following material will be. So, forgiveness, it's the first Shila, and the following text coming from the 10 characteristics of dharmika. What is forgiveness? It means to remain free from vindictive attitudes towards anyone. Suppose someone has done something inimical to you, you in turn need not to be revengeful or vindicative towards him or her. It is, of course, quite natural for any ordinary person to take revenge against someone who has done an inimical action. There is nothing wrong if an ordinary person does that. But one who is virtuous, that is, one who has risen slightly above the rest, cannot act in this way. He or she should behave otherwise. If one is satisfied that the wrongdoer's habit has been rectified, one may pardon him or her. If someone is perpetrating atrocities on thousands of Anandamargis, however, one has no individual right to excuse the wrongdoer because he or she has harmed thousands of innocent people. But if a person commits atrocities on me alone, and if I am satisfied that his or her nature has been transformed, it would be proper for me as dharmika to show forgiveness. However, if his or her nature has not been rectified, my forgiveness may result in that person becoming even more of a reckless scoundrel, and in such a case, forgiveness would be considered as a sign of my weakness. That is, neither is it proper for me to blindly forgive a wrongdoer, nor is it proper for me to blindly punish a wrongdoer. We should think properly before we act. If someone goes against the collective interest of the society, a collective decision should be made whether the wrongdoer should be forgiven or not, keeping in mind whether he or she has already rectified the bad habit. No individual can take a decision in this regard arbitrarily. And yeah, so I don't think this text requires any comments, so very straightforward and up to the point as usual. The next text that I have comes from Sri Srianandamurti's book called Religious Dogma. Why have Buddhism and Jainism not stood the test of time? Both these religions suffer from two main defects, which have undermined their popularity. Gautam Buddha failed to propound any clear idea about God and the ultimate goal of human life, and he did not try to build a human society based on these teachings. Mahavira Jain placed too much emphasis on forgiveness and mercy. He taught people to forgive their worst enemies, even if they were as deadly as scorpions and snakes. As a result of this teaching, people lost the will to fight against the enemies of society. So although the teachings of Buddha and Mahavira Jain were not based on dogma and did not deliberately mislead people, they failed in the course of time because they were not sufficiently comprehensive and well balanced. I think this quote emphasizes the difference in understanding of the concept of forgiveness that different people have. Because some people and some have in mind this idea of forgiving anyone, whatever they do, no matter whether they have decided to stop doing that, for instance, or not. And yeah, so the difference is, I think, is obvious. I think these two texts briefly cover the topic, cover the main idea at least. I also found a few things on forgiveness that were that could be found in the most recent history of our society. So Nelson Mandela highlighted the power of forgiveness when he said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." And he also said, "Forgiveness liberates the soul. It removes fear. That is why it is such a powerful weapon." And Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, and he forgave those who imprisoned him. And he has chosen forgiveness over revenge. So instead of seeking retribution against his former captors, he advocated for reconciliation and unity. And he made it a central focus as the president of South Africa. He worked to bring together both Black and white South Africans and fix the society. One of the symbolic actions related to forgiveness that were meant to demonstrate that was that he invited his white jailer to his presidential inauguration as an honored guest. Does anybody have any questions on this topic? Also, I thought about popular culture and forgiveness, and I don't know, maybe you can. I didn't come up with any good examples. The only thing that came to mind is when Luke Skywalker forgave his father, the Darth Vader. But again, it goes against this this concept when you can forgive someone, obviously, but if that person like was involved in some kind of atrocities related to thousands or millions of innocent people, it's not up to you to completely forgive them, right? So maybe it's not a good example. So
No,
if you have any,
it's a perfect example. Atmaram, it's the perfect example. It's the perfect case study. So have everybody seen it? It's a perfect example. Because this is why episode 6 is my favorite episode of Star Wars. Because this conflict is exactly there between the pacifism and agonism, which is the use of conflict, the embracing of conflict and letting go. So can everybody say, who's seen this film? Atmaram, anybody else? Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, I've seen it for sure.
Okay, Japesh. Anybody else?
I've seen as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Madhuvidya, you have not seen it, right? I don't know. I can't see you, so I don't know. I can't
No,
hear.
I didn't.
Okay. So the greatness lies in front of you. I'm lucky. I'm jealous. Okay, to cut this story short, to cut it to the chase. So his father is the Sith Lord, right? So he's turned to the dark side, and he's about to confront. And Luke Skywalker is a Jedi, but he and his mentors, Luke Skywalker's mentors, Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, they tell him that you cannot you cannot truly become a Jedi unless you face and win and essentially destroy, kill Darth Vader. Kill Darth Vader. But there's the thing that happens now. Darth Vader is one of the identities of Anakin Skywalker. So according to the lore of Star Wars, there is a good side, there is the good side and the bad side within every person. There's a battle between them, the light side and the dark side. And what Luke Skywalker is confronting here is his father is not only Darth Vader. Let's say he's 90% or 95% Darth Vader, but there's 5% of of Anakin Skywalker in him. So before Darth Vader turned to the dark side and slaughtered many innocent Jedis and people and corrupted, planets and everything, and became just a warmonger, lusting for power and everything. He was a Jedi, a noble guy, like an Acharya, an aspiring Acharya. And to cut the story short, Luke has this conflict because he cannot kill his father. And in his main thing, he says there is good in him. And at some point, and they fight in the beginning of the film, and basically Luke Skywalker, in a way, I don't want to spoil it for Marovidia because it's like the very important part. But all I'm gonna say is, in this film, what Luke does, he does not shy away from confronting the dark side, and he basically, neutralizes him, but he does not abuse it. He doesn't turn completely to the dark side. So as you can see, guys, there is the dimensionality within each person. There is not 100% good, there is not 100% bad. And in this film, you can see how there is not only the good side in Luke Skywalker, there is the dark side within him. And what the story is all about is you have to embrace the dark side. You have to look into your dark side, but you must not be consumed by your dark side. So you must basically, taking it to the jargon of yoga, you must not be seduced by the tamasic side, but you must also not be seduced by the sattvic side. But sattva guna is more subtle and good, and it's better to be, say, overpowered by it than by the tamaguna or rajaguna. But still, we should be balanced and established in consciousness, or what they call in Star Wars as the Force. So Atmaram, your example was amazing. You brought my spirits very high, and whenever I talk about Star Wars, my mood just becomes amazing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Star Wars is awesome. And Madhuvidi, if you're going to watch Star Wars, my advice is to start watching with episode 1, and you can end with episode 6, and that would be like the perfect series, I guess. Now we can call it series. Yeah, anyway, yeah, I love Star Wars, general philosophy behind it and everything related to it. The second Shila, monogamity of mind, is even broader. So when I started looking into it, I think that maybe, Nirmal, if you can provide some general information on the Shila, because the quotes that I found are rather limited. Or I can go ahead with the quotes.
Yeah, you go ahead. I will maybe add if I find something.
Okay. So the first quote comes from the book called Aspects of Social Justice. In my opinion, it is a great mistake to think that refined behavior represents education. For the true nature of a person is not limited to his or her external behavior, but is reflected in the extent to which he or she has developed his or her magnanimity of mind. If you consciously or unconsciously bump into someone and say, "Oh, sorry," without inquiring whether the person is hurt, that is enough to show one's refinement. Although this is a sign of what we call courtesy, it does not reflect genuine magnanimity of mind. The person's education will only be seen if he or she liberally applies a healing balm to the wound of the injured person. If the offender tries his or her utmost to mitigate the troubles of the injured person, even at his or her own expense, then even the omission of the words "oh, sorry" will not matter. Many things that are done in the name of education and refinement are simply hypocrisy. For example, instead of trying to remove the distress of the neighbors, some people merely ask, "What did you have with your rice today?" When the child replies, "Mommy only cooked spinach," the inquirer merely replies, "Oh, what a pity. Your family must be in great difficulty." As they say great difficulty, they emphasize the words to give their fake concern a veneer of sympathy. This is hardly an indication of genuine social concern or magnanimity of mind. I think this is a good example that Sri Anandamurti provides on what he means by that Shila. And in regards to other philosophers, I found this quote by Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor, a Stoic philosopher. And he said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly and take care that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature." Yeah, I think that's actually all I have. In regards to the pop culture, an example that comes to mind perhaps is what Neo does in the movie The Matrix when he goes and decides to put the society's interests far beyond his own, which leads to uh, I'm not going to spoil the movie for you if you haven't watched it. But again, I think that that might be an example of this principle as well. But again, as I said, it would require much more time to dig into the topic to provide proper coverage, because I think it's a very broad topic to discuss. That's all I have.
And I had a question just regarding forgiveness. So, if we decide not to forgive somebody, does that mean um, we hold a grudge of some sort? We still hold on to some resentment? Is there some form of still not letting go of the situation and sort of like still holding on to it until the person uh, changes or learns? Because I know it contradicts the teachings of Buddhism as you detailed. So I'm just wondering what that would look like uh, in us, from let's say an emotional, mental perspective. Because with the spiritual traditions I've learned from, I've always very very common to learn about how you always want to try to forgive. So I'm just trying to understand it a little more.
Yeah, my understanding is that I remember that Dada explained it once, and as I recall, he said that you should forgive internally if someone does something to you. So internally you need to forgive, but externally, if the person still does their wrongdoings, if they do not change, externally you should not show forgiveness so that they understand that that behavior, for instance, is unacceptable. Because if you forgive both internally and externally, right after someone does something to you or to someone else, then that person will does it again and again and again. Therefore, they will hurt other people, the society in general. So it's bad for the society. So my understanding is that you need to, again, forgive internally, but not provide forgiveness externally if the person didn't change.
I'm almost seeing it from the perspective of a parent and a child. If their behavior is out of line, you definitely need to correct and discipline. But internally, it's a uh, pure intention of love, right? For the benefit of the other person. So yeah, that does make sense.
I, I think to me it boils down to, what is normalized in the society. So what level of violence, for instance, even verbal violence is normalized in the society. And it is normalized by people, right? So if people start expressing that something is unacceptable, then it will be unacceptable. Then other people will not behave in a certain way, right? But if no one expresses their concern about what happens in the society, then nothing will change. So I think that's just my understanding where it stems from. So it stems from the idea that our um, forgiveness, external forgiveness, defines the society. So not so if 1 million people start, for instance, start acting that way, then lots of things will change around us. Because no one wants to look bad. Even people who do really horrible things, they don't think that they are doing something bad, right? Everybody want to think about themselves that they're doing something good, and we can justify anything. Anything can be justified in our mind. And if we do not see that what we do is unacceptable, if no one tells that to us, then how do we understand? Some people might understand, of course, if they try to think and dig deep into the philosophical concepts behind their own actions. But I think many people wouldn't do that. So the only way to change the behavior, bad behavior in the society or bad behavior of some particular person, is to express that that's unacceptable. So I think that's my understanding.
Okay, we have time. Let's go. We don't have time. Let's go to the next ones.
All right, I believe I am next. I apologize, I don't have a presentation, and even in regards to uh, Baba's comments, I don't have access to much of his material, so I will discuss just what came to mind. So the Sheila I'm discussing, perpetual restraint on behavior and temper. And what came to mind are the yamas and the niyamas. that we covered previously and the foundation of our spiritual practice. Um, Going through all of them, I was able to sort of see how restraint or even control of our behavior is necessary in most of the principles. I hope I'm understanding it correctly. Please, you know, uh, step in and correct me if I'm understanding perpetual restraint on behavior and temper incorrectly. But just going through the principles, ahimsa, right? Very clear. Nonviolence through thought, word, or action. When someone does something hurtful to us, it is normal or a tendency to have a reaction of some sort. Maybe not the most pleasant reaction, but our ability to restrain our behavior, restrain our temper, and maintain in control to not be reactive, but more responsive, right? So that is very, very clear. Satya, truthfulness, proper action of mind and the right use of words with the spirit of welfare requires control and restraint of some sort. Asteya, non-stealing too. Um, Many people who are put in situations where um, it might seem like stealing is the necessary course of action, but we do have to maintain some sort of control. Brahmacharya, to remain attached to Brahma. Um, do you see the principle in this Shila and that principle to remain attached to Brahma, Brahmacharya? I guess so, right? Because the mind could go in different directions, but we always want to bring it back to ideating, especially in tense moments. Uh, Aparigraha, non-possessiveness, not grasping at that which is more than necessary. So very, very clear on how in every one of those yamas there is an ongoing uh, restraint on our behavior. Um, Saucha, purity or cleanliness. Um, yeah, I think straightforward. Like we do have to consciously and intentionally uh, adjust our behavior to maintain that purity and cleanliness, not just physically in our physical environment, but also uh, mentally, especially in um, certain scenarios that might bring out those darker sides of ourselves. Santosha, uh, contentment is not possible if one is running after carnal desires. So always need restraints on those carnal appetites. Tapas, self-discipline. I think that one is very, very clear. Um, Svadhyaya, clear understanding of any spiritual subject. Um, so reflecting on it now, it's easy to be distracted and not go deeper, dig deeper into um, our spiritual studies. So it does require us to maintain that discipline to go deeper and understand. If so, especially when we think we know, it probably means that we need to uh, go a little deeper. Because I think when we think we know, it probably means we don't. Ishvara Pranidhana, to establish oneself in the cosmic ideal, to establish Ishvara as the only ideal of life. And once again, um, many distractions in life, so it's always required for us to maintain that that restraint, that control, in order to maintain that ideal. And in regards to other traditions, perpetual restraint on behavior and temper seems to be foundational. If you go into Buddhism, in one of our previous classes, I discussed Buddhism and the Eightfold Path. So the Eightfold Path to, I guess, to not necessarily conclude the spiritual practice, but to achieve that enlightenment. And then in Christianity, what came to mind? The Ten Commandments. And you look at any spiritual master, and their lives are a reflection of their behavior and temper in complete control. And I obviously see, while embarking on this spiritual journey, in many aspects of my life, I see how I need to control uh, physical desires, these mental desires, um, in order to prioritize the spiritual practice. Um, and in terms of examples in pop culture, has anyone seen the movie Groundhog Day? Okay, good. Mariviria, you haven't?
No,
Groundhog Day?
now I
Okay.
have two
Yeah,
movies to watch.
yeah, that's a good one too. I saw it back in the day before I sort of saw the comparison. Um, but in a nutshell, Groundhog Day, it's Bill Murray, the main character. He wakes up and he relives the same day. Initially, in the beginning of the movie, he's very unrestrained, very egotistical. Um, you know, um, says whatever comes to mind, even when it's mean. Goes after the girl, even when he's being like obnoxious or rude. But he wakes up. It's the same day over and over again until he he sort of achieves control in many aspects of his life. And then um, you see all the different parts of his life. They get better. They achieve a harmony of some sort, and it's almost like the fact that it's not the same day. He's almost achieved liberation of some sort. So it's almost like the cycle of reincarnation. Death, rebirth. We're always going to relive the same day until we actually um, achieve virtue, I think, in our lives, in all the different aspects of our lives, truly. And then we break free in a way of this cycle. That's all I got on that topic, that Sheila. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, so I guess I'll move on. The next, Sheila, readiness to sacrifice everything of individual life for ideology. Um, what came to mind in relation to Ananda Marga, uh, I came across in Charya Charya 2. It's just this quote. Let me just read it. Country can be conquered by force of arms, but the mind cannot. Those who have taken to sadhana to conquer the mind are true soldiers. The aim of Ananda Margis is to conquer the universal mind. To achieve that, they will have to acquire the qualities of soldiers. They will have to keep especially strict vigilance on unity and order. Do not allow distinctions to crop up among Anandamargis. Unity should be maintained even at the risk of one's life. Do not, under any circumstances, allow individual interest to stand in the way of collective interest. So just those last two sentences seems to directly relate to being willing to sacrifice everything for the ideology. Um, and the life of renunciates. I I see this, Sheila, very clearly. It's they've sort of turned away from the individual life for the ideology. I don't know if I'm understanding it correctly, like the ideology of connecting with um, the universal mind as opposed to the individual mind. Um, I referenced the documentary, The Mountain Yogi, the I think the other session. Um, but um, his wife became pregnant, and that's when he knew he had to leave to become a monk, because if he saw his child, he knew he wouldn't be able to leave. So I do see that as a sacrifice of the individual life for the ideology. Um, and it seems to be the path to enlightenment and even the purpose of the spiritual practices of uh, many spiritual traditions. Um, in regards to examples from film, books, I thought of Batman, right? Bruce Wayne, one of the richest men in the world, turned away from that individual life, willing to sort of sacrifice um, Bruce Wayne um, for his ideology of the Batman. And after the retreat, uh, Nirmal was talking about Lord of the Rings. So Frodo came to mind. He was living a very peaceful kind of life in the Shire, like his individual type of happy life, but he leaves in a way to embark on this journey. I'm going to rewatch it because I watched it a long time ago, but I can't remember sort of the actual occurrences for him to lead on that journey to save humanity. So it's like literally leaving his life as Frodo to embark on this great ideal. And yeah, that's all I got. Any questions or comments?
I think it's a great example with Lord of the Rings. We're currently reading The Lord of the Rings with my son, and it's filled, the book is just filled with so many great examples of, Jamaniyama principles, I guess 15 Shilas as well. And yeah, I wanted to comment on this, the last piece, the last principle. I think that this Shila reflects the ideal of selfless service for the collective welfare of humanity. So it emphasizes this focus of the whole Anandamarga philosophy, not on individual, right, enlightenment, for instance, but on developing yourself spiritually, physically, and psychically, as well as and while working with the society and trying to improve the society by following all those ideas, or following Jamani Yamas and 15 Shilas and such. So because I'm attending German Dharmachakras with Dada Sadananda, and he is regularly asked something like, should I, for instance, I would like, someone asks him if they should like go into a cave, metaphorically speaking, instead of staying in the society. And the answer is always that we need to dedicate and work for the collective welfare. So the true spiritual practice is not about retreating from the society for personal enlightenment, but engaging actively in the world to achieve universal well-being. I think that's one of the ideas. So retreating is not an option in this case. And I think it's also described in this concept of Atma Mokshartam Jagat Hitacha. So self-realization while working for welfare of the world. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. I think that what differs our ideology from so many others.
I would like to add that it's also differentiating between what is very achievable but very not long lasting, and something that is eternal or very important. So, for example, your principles are something that is very important to you, and in the situations when you're faced with circumstances when you need to choose between two, you need to choose your principles. And the biggest principle for yogis is Atmamokshartam Jagat Hitaya. So it also builds our character while doing so. We really improve, and yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Very good. We are at time. Akamatsi, final words. You are the most devoted Margi in this group. Okay, I don't want to put you on the spot. If you have any comments or anything you want to say, you're welcome. You've been very quiet.
Thank you, Nirmal. So nothing special I would like to share with you today. So because I actually didn't prepared for any conversation, but I just want to share with you one thing, and as I feel it's really correlates with our today's topic, especially the last two. So you probably know, and maybe some probably you've read the book German Gesse Siddhartha. It's a great book about the living path of spiritual person who actually was a son of Brahman, and he's supposed to become a Brahman as well. So, but he's living his life. He chose his own spiritual path in a society, right? So, and at some point of his life, when he actually obtained almost everything in a normal life, like a lot of money, women, and everything that normal person might desire in the life. he started. He returned to his, to his inner values. What he's lived for, actually, right? Such as finding his own, obtaining the wisdom, I would say, right? So, and how to obtain this inner wisdom. So, and it's really correlates with an idea of, sacrificing everything for ideology, because that's exactly what he did at some point in his life. So he sacrificed his very comfort, very his very comfort life for his inner ideology. Right. So, okay. Long story short, just really recommend to read this book. I always enjoy reading it again and again. So
It's a controversial book in a good way, because after his character has a chance to basically become a disciple of Gautama Buddha, or not
yeah.
to, and he chooses not to. So he chooses material life. And like you said, he spends many years pursuing all the material things. He begets a son. And then he realizes, like you said, that he needs to leave, and he leaves all that behind. And guess what happens? He goes and lives within the woods, basically like in a cave, with his boatman. And then his wife comes with his son. Well, he didn't know that he had a son at that time. And he says, well, this is your son. And she dies. And so the son grows up with him. And after some time, he doesn't want to stay there. He's very disenchanted with all of this. And he says, why are we in the woods, Father? This is nonsense. Like, I want to see people, I want to see life. And he flees. He runs away to the city from his father. And he generally hates his father. Well, I mean, his father left him, right? So I would say it's an example of a human being, a spiritual seeker on the path. I don't think it's an ideal. That's why I like this book, because, and then he basically falls into despair and depression. He says, and he laments to this boatman who has been living with him. Boatman is like a mute. He's a mute person who doesn't really speak much, who just listens, like as a good psychotherapist. So he just listens to. He's like just a reflection to Siddhartha, and he tells him, "Well, Siddhartha, isn't that something that you did when you were young? You left your father. You were supposed to become a Brahmin, a scholar, and instead you said, well, no, I don't care about this life, and you left it all behind, and you went to live with Shramanas, or those, how do you say, those renunciates, ascetic, how do you say, those ascets, or what's the word? Well, yeah, okay, renunciates. And so those misfits, and then all of this, then he gave up his being a renunciate, and he went to get his material life, and then that. But before he became that, he was presented an opportunity to become a disciple of Buddha, and he declined to that. And so the result of all of this is he basically found his way by experiencing all parts of extremities in life.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly why I really like this book, because he always
couldn't make a
choose
mistake.
to find his. He always choose to find his own path. Not follow someone, but find his own path. So his inner beliefs was that he is the only one who is able to elaborate um, to find what is really what he should follow in his life.
And here we are, worshiping Sri Shanandamurti and following studying the teaching. And I've been always reflecting on this. Those people who are very independent, who have very strong samskaras to go out there and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, are very, very courageous, some of them. But, I mean, I don't know. This is a contested thing. It's controversial. I've met quite a few very talented people who chose not to follow Sri Shanandamurti, decided to withdraw from this path, to discontinue. Well, at the time, they seemed highly talented, highly spiritual, highly disciplined, but long term doesn't work. Short term works, long term doesn't work, just like relationships. So the light comes out.
Nirmal, do you think that Siddhartha actually failed his? Oh,
Well,
that's funny.
no, I don't think he failed. He lived his life as a man, as a human being. I mean, what is the perfect path? Who walks the perfect path? Like we are on this path right now, but there are no guarantees. You know, it all depends on devotion, on samskaras, but eventually every path is the path towards God. But some of them are, say, more, I don't know, there are, I guess, so many dimensions. What do you think? It's a difficult topic. Siddhartha is a perfect example of a very indirect path. How to choose what. But I like personally Siddhartha, and this is the play that I've wanted to produce for the last few years. And I adapted the novel into the play, and I want to edit it even further. Hello, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. I have to be leaving soon. Yeah. So my final words. I don't know. It reminds me of Tolstoy. Like, people make mistakes. He had this concept of the power of disillusionment, which is you genuinely think that you know what's best for you when you make a mistake, but at least you try your best. And then
Yeah.
realize I made a mistake. That's it. It's not, nothing is permanent, and that's what we learn on this path. Unfortunately, relationships come, relationships go. There's no guarantee that we'll have perfect relationships with our parents, with our children. We may have them. We can do the best we can to do that. But I guess the truth is everything is possible in this world, depending on all the circumstances and samskaras. The tantric path is wild, it's difficult, it's full of conflict and struggle, full of bliss as well. So, yeah.
And forgiveness, right? Because you never can. Let's say sometimes it's really hard to forgive yourself for something, so for some misdeeds and stuff like that. So yeah, following your own path, you have to be you have to be ready, that faced with your, I would say, imperfection, right? And forgive yourself for that.
Well, thank you for this fruitful discussion. Madhvidya, can we stop recording, please?